Isaiah chapter 17, Parable of the Eagles. Then the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, pose a riddle and speak a parable to the house of Israel. You are to say, this is what the Lord God says. A huge eagle with powerful wings, long feathers, and full plumage of many colors came to Lebanon, or Jerusalem. So that eagle is king of Babylon, and took the top of the cedar. He plucked off its topmost shoot, so the kings and officials brought it to the land of merchants, Babylon, and set it in a city of traders. Then he took some of the land's seed, the royal family, the people of Israel, and put it in a fertile field. He set it like a willow, a plant or near water, by abundant water. It sprouted and became a spreading vine, low in height with its branches. So a willow is associated with grief and mourning, commonly found engraved on tombstones, typically deciduous trees and shrubs near most moist soils in cold and temperate regions. Low in height with its branches turned towards him, so they began to worship this king, yet its roots stayed under it. So it became a vine, produced branches, and sent out shoots. But there was another eagle with powerful wings, Pharaoh, and thick plumage. And this vine bent its root toward him, so acted like they went towards Pharaoh because they thought Pharaoh would save them from Babylon. Like, Israel, they went to Egypt because they didn't want to go to Babylon. So they're like, okay, so since we're not going to go to Babylon, we're going to go to Egypt and maybe Pharaoh will save us. No. It stretched out its branches to him from the plot where it was planted, so it makes it vulnerable. So when a willow, its vines stretch down because that's just how they grow. It stretches towards the water. But if you stretch up, if the vines stretch up, it makes them more vulnerable so that he might water it. They thought it had been planted in a good field by abundant water in order to produce branches, bear fruit, and become a splendid vine. So this is Egypt. Egypt had the Nile River, right? Had a lot of water. This eagle did nothing, so Pharaoh did nothing to help them, okay? And I also noted here that willows stretch downward, which gives it strength, because that's where the water is. That's where the roots are. You ought to say, this is what the Lord God says. Will it flourish? Will he not tear out its roots and strip it of its fruit so that it shrivels? Yes, Pharaoh will. Pharaoh will plunder it just like Nebuchadnezzar will. All its fresh leaves will wither. Great strength and many people will not be needed to pull it from its roots. Even though it is planted, will it flourish? Won't it wither completely when the east wind strikes it? Because if it stretches upward, it's making it weak. It will wither on the plot where it is sprouted. So the second eagle can't save the vine. So Pharaoh cannot save Israel. I also made a note here that verses 1 through 8 could represent the ungratefulness of Israel not being satisfied with one ruler, idol, going to worship another, possibly for something better. So they were like, no, we don't want to go to Babylon. We'll go to Egypt where we know, because we came out of Egypt, we know what we're going to get when we go to Egypt. So let's just go to Egypt. No, he not going to save y'all. Absolutely not. Okay? Now the word of the Lord came to me. Now say to that rebellious house, do you know what these things mean? They do not. No, they don't. Tell them, the king of Babylon came to Jerusalem, took its king and officials, and brought them back with him to Babylon. So that's this part here, where it says a huge eagle with powerful wings, long feathers, full plumage of many colors, came to Jerusalem or Lebanon and took the top of the cedar. So the officials, okay? He took one of the royal family and made a covenant with him, putting him under oath. So that would have been the land's seed, and put it in a fertile field, which would have been the oath, right? Then he took away the leading men of the land, so that the kingdom would be humble and not exalt itself, but would keep his covenant in order to endure. However, this king revolted against him by sending his ambassadors to Egypt so that they might give him horses and a large army. Will he flourish? Will the ones who do such things escape? Can he break a covenant and still escape? So right here I have Zedekiah ignored the promises of loyalty and submission he made to Nebuchadnezzar. Yah expected him to keep the covenant and would be punished for breaking it. So this is found in Jeremiah 38:14 through 28, when Zedekiah was like, nah, I'm not going to Babylon. After Jeremiah had told him, you need to surrender to Nebuchadnezzar when he comes. You need to surrender and go to Babylon. He was like, nah, I'm not doing that. But y'all can go back and read Jeremiah 38:14 through 28, or you can look on my playlist for Jeremiah. The second eagle is here. As I live, this is the declaration of the Lord God. He will die in Babylon, in the land of the king who put him on the throne, whose oath he despised and whose covenant he broke. Pharaoh, with his mighty army and vast company, will not help him in battle when ramps are built and sage walls constructed to destroy many lives. So this is the second eagle. He's not going to help him. He despised the oath by breaking the covenant. He did all these things, even though he gave his hand in pledge. He will not escape. And so I do have some scriptures here. But I do want to read a little bit of this here. The first eagle was the king of Babylon. Zebulun is Jerusalem. The highest branch of the cedar would be Judah's king, Jehoiakim, and princes. Seeds and vine would be the king's offspring, Zedekiah. The first eagle made a covenant with Zedekiah, put him under oath. The king took away King Jehoiakim as well as other noblemen, Daniel, Azariah, Mishael, and Hananiah. Vine would find no help from the second eagle. Zedekiah would not get help from Egypt. And Zedekiah was a covenant breaker. So we have these scriptures here. Let's go and look at 2 Kings 25:7. Now this is also noted in Jeremiah. It says, they slaughtered Zedekiah's sons before his eyes. Finally, the king of Babylon blinded Zedekiah, bound him in bronze chains, and took him to Babylon. Jeremiah 52:11. Then he blinded Zedekiah and bound him with bronze chains. Yep. And right before that said that he unalived his sons. And then another one is 2 Kings 24:18 through 20. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamatel, daughter of Jeremiah. She was born from Libnah. This is not the same Jeremiah. Zedekiah did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as Jehoiakim had done. Because of the Lord's anger, it came to the point in Jerusalem and Judah that he finally banished them from his presence. Then Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon.